Hello there, welcome to the episode of the Data Radio Show where we finally wrap up that conversation between Simon and Sam. Simon's from DeepWeaverAI and he's been helping us learn the AI guardrails that they put in place to make sure that AI does the job that we need it to do, particularly in highly impactful fields like insurance or accounting or banking, for example, where we need to make sure those guardrails are there to protect the reams of data that get produced every day in those fields. So they're going to be taking a look at two really specific guardrails in this one. The first one is accountability, because that's a really key issue. Nobody should be making a decision if nobody is accountable for the results of that. And then the last one's actually conformity testing, which, well, some people seem to be a little confused about this, but it's about making sure you get the same results every time. But to be honest, they explain it far better than I could. Before you jump over to that conversation though, make sure you hit that like button or share the video or subscribe to the channel. And if you want to learn a little bit more about this in person on September 12, we've got a meetup in Sydney with DeepWeaver helping us out to learn a little bit more about AI guardrails and AI governance, particularly around those financial institutions, those ones that deal with all of the many numbers. And you can learn more about that on our school page or our LinkedIn page, and I'll put something in the description in the bio below. In the meantime, feel free to enjoy this episode, catch the last of them, and remember this is part of a series, so you can watch them all now. You can go out and binge. Get the popcorn ready, it'll take about an hour to watch them all. All right, let's jump over there.
So number 9, which this kind of feeds into, is accountability and governance. And I guess this idea of who is ultimately responsible when an AI makes a catastrophic error. The blame is going to be shared around, I'm sure, but how do you build better structures of accountability and governance? Thoughts on this?
So I guess understanding first and foremost who's accountable, not so much responsible, but who's accountable in the process, and being able to trace that responsibility. If you think of AI as a supply chain, somebody will be accountable for the entire supply chain, whether it starts inside your business or outside your business, whether it's handed through to another organization. There's still that chain of custody and accountability, right? Interesting thing, the courts are kind of testing some of these now at a global level, right? And the legal definitions around this need to be a bit clearer than what they are, because if I developed it and it's made a mistake, am I the one you come to? I think what we're going to see is a lot of finger pointing and blame storming, as opposed to me, the business process, whoever's responsible and accountable for that business process is responsible for the things that influence that business process and its outcome. If you think back to when businesses were run by paper, somebody was accountable that this piece of paper didn't have written on it what it should, but it got all the way through the process. Same thing exists here. Just because we're digitizing at a speed doesn't mean those accountabilities shift. You can't step back from your model and go, well, it wasn't me, right? Similarly, if I just take up a job as a head of retail banking for an organization that already has models in place, I'm still accountable for those models.
Mm-hmm.
I can't go, I didn't build them. Fred deployed those, right? So there's a big shift, and I think that a lot of the work we do at DeepWeaver is explaining to boards and organizations what it means to have AI from a returns perspective, from a performance business outcome perspective, but what it means to be accountable and responsible for AI. And this is where it dovetails into some of those that scope creep in job roles and then the new job roles, right? So if I'm head of treasury at a large financial institution, I might declare that I'm not comfortable being the custodian of all the models in my business unit. So I might hire someone to do that, right? So you'll see a lot of those things because it's not automatically assumed that everybody will be comfortable with this, right? So you'll find an expansion of the leadership team in such a way that these accountabilities get set somewhere, But the idea is not to legislate it from a legal perspective so far that it slows down the speed. I don't think anybody's got a perfect answer for this, right? So it's, as it evolves, I think you'll see different approaches. And the challenge is not everybody will get it right. That's the unfortunate thing here, right?
Yeah. And that kind of nicely brings us to the 10th guardrail, which is probably the least readily understood. So this is a mandatory proposal to undertake conformity assessments for high risk AI. So just explain to the audience exactly what a conformity assessment is and how it would work. And I guess more importantly, why is this one guardrail being proposed as mandatory when the other 9 are voluntary?
Yeah, so this is the best one to start off with as mandatory, right? So conformity assessments kind of fit into 2 categories: internal controls and quality management, right? So the idea is that as your AI pursuits evolve and your portfolio of AI projects are deployed, it's not a set and forget, right? So similarly to when people started to deploy into cloud, they had to come and talk to the regulator from a financial service perspective about the controls, how they're going to meet the standards, what they were going to toggle on or off in terms of capabilities and controls, and their approach to the overall conformity and management of this, right? Same thing sits here, right? You're going to have a set of internal controls around your models that have to be met and have to continually be met. So you've got to litmus test these, right? If you think of the speed of the change of these models, you're going to be doing this quite regularly in their life cycle. The life cycle of AI models is not a quarterly release cycle. It's not an annual application upgrade cycle. It's something entirely different. The other thing inside these conformity assessments is the sort of quality, right? Understanding, putting a line in the sand as to what is delivering a quality result, right? And holding that quality watermark. So this is going to be challenging as you get into more of these sort of high risk solutions, but they have to be sort of legally defensible. So if you stitch it all together, right, you'll have conformity assessments that show that your models are acting the way that you set about for them to act. You'll have quality management in there that says that they are delivering the quality expectations of your organization. You'll have the job roles that are sort of governing this as a life cycle, and this is almost an instantaneous life cycle. You'll have the governance frameworks and all of these things. You'll have the transparency that you'll be able to show as to how the model works, but also how it prevents itself from misuse, and how you're mitigating risks. So these things all work together, but by setting this one as a mandatory, it almost forces all of these other things to start to be created at the same time, right? Because you can't do this one without having the job roles and the accountabilities and the RACI. You can't do this one without understanding how the model is, because what does your internal controls document look like if you don't know how the model works? So all of these things kind of work together. So it was quite deliberate, I think, by setting this one as mandatory, because it's a big signal that it's now is the time to get all 10 working together. And I talk about scaffold and plumbing all the time because it's pretty easy for people to understand. But number 10 gives you the scaffold, right? And then the rest you can build from that. And it forces you to start building the others, right? So it's quite interesting that we took that approach, because it's a forcing function around the others, right? And it also forces the industry, big tech and everything else, when they see that this is the mandatory one, they also realize they've got additional skin in the game here as well, right? Because if they're going to create these products, people have to be able to meet this one. So they have to offer solutions in the market that are capable of doing this as well, right? So it's a brilliant one to act as a bit of a forcing function.
So maybe to pick up on that analogy around scaffolding, the first 9 are effectively your foundations, your basic structure. Then number 10 is putting the scaffolding around it so that it enables you to be able to scale and build up and finish the construction, if you like, and do it at scale. Is that a fair way of describing it?
Absolutely. And the plumbing concept is you have to have a way to get rid of the things that you shouldn't ethically keep, right?
Right.
That may be harmful, right? Yeah.
Waste management. So.
Well, we talked about all those elements of data that may potentially be harmful and represent a point in time, right? So.
I guess it's hygiene practices. So, yeah.
And look, even companies with massive IT budgets, their hygiene isn't great, right? So the focus was storing things, right? Keeping things, having a clinical record or this corporate history of everything about a person or everything that we've ever done. That world is sort of changing, right? Especially as you tap into that sort of harmful space.
I guess there must be a reason why humans forget stuff. So, you think about it from our own cognitive processing mechanism. If we remembered every single incident that ever occurred to us in our conscious minds, I guess our skulls would be a lot larger than they are.
And we'd probably never make a decent decision either, right? Because you never move on from that point in time, right? Because you can remember everything.
All right, that's perfect. Simon, thank you so much for your time today, and look forward to talking to you some more over the coming years and weeks.
Thanks, Sam. It was a pleasure.
Hey, I want to thank Simon from DeepWeaver for running us through these 10 guardrails. It's been a really fascinating experience listening to the conversation the whole way through. And again, you can listen to all of that. You can binge the episodes now. They're all out there. What's really fascinating to me is how some of these feel like really common sense things to put in place, but common sense isn't always that common when you're dealing with all kinds of different people. So it's really good to hear an expert talk about these things in particular. Right, if you haven't already, hit that like button for the video, feel free to share it or subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to jump over to our school page or our LinkedIn page, or even give our newsletter, the Data Pro News, a follow. They're all linked in the description down below. Until next time, look after yourself, live long, prosper, be one with the force, and we will catch you all next time.